All right, well, it's 5 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started and people will roll in more. So welcome to our webinar. Good evening, everyone. We are very excited to have you joining us. My name is Ashley Davis, and I'm the coordinator here at the Design Lab for K-12 Education at the College of Design at NC State. I know that was a mouthful. So welcome to our webinar. So we're here tonight to introduce you all to our Design Lab programs and to hopefully demystify the field of design for you as a career path. And we're going to go through and introduce you to the majors offered at the College of Design. To give you a quick overview of this webinar, I'll start us off by introducing the Design Lab for K-12 Education. Then our presenters are going to take over, and they're going to welcome you to the College of Design. They'll take you on a quick tour of the college. Hopefully, they'll help you gain a general understanding of what design is. And then you'll get to hear about all the various design paths and careers that are available. We'll end the webinar with a quick Q&A session. During the actual presentation, though, we would like to ask that if you do end up having any questions during the presentation, please use that chat feature and window. At the end of the presentation, that's when we'll use the Q&A function. So before we begin and you meet our presenters, I'd like to quickly introduce you all to the Design Lab for K-12 Education. The picture you see here is our actual classroom on campus. The young man that you see standing on the table there, he's one of our former students. His name is Alex Kinnicky. Alex graduated from the Design Studies program, which you'll hear more about later. And he currently lives in New York City and works as a graphic designer for Calvin Klein. As an undergraduate student, Alex worked for our summer design camp as a counselor, and he later worked for the Design Lab as one of our interns. So the Design Lab for K-12 Education, while mainly focused on providing programming for pre-college students, we also work really closely with our undergraduate and graduate students to help them engage with pre-college students. The students at the College of Design really are truly phenomenal, and they really are the best advocates for the field of design. And you'll get to meet two such students in this webinar. But before you meet our presenters, let me quickly cover what the Design Lab programs are. So we offer a variety of programming for K-12 students and educators and the K-12 community at large. The Design Lab is dedicated to teaching design as a way of thinking. And as you'll hear and hopefully recognize in this webinar, design really is all around us. It touches nearly every facet of our lives. Our programming, believe in promoting the field of design and design thinking to pre-college students because we genuinely believe that the development of design skills can only better our future. For students, we currently offer weekend workshops during the school year, and each summer we hold our annual design camp, which has been offered since 1980 and has introduced thousands of students to design. For schools, we currently offer a field trip program, which includes a tour of campus of the campus of the College of Design. And as part of the field trip, you get to participate in a hands-on design challenge project in our Design Lab studio. As you can imagine, we were unable to hold field trips this past year because of COVID, but we do hope to resume field trips next school year. Also for schools and as part of our Reach Out initiative, we can travel to your school and run short after-school workshops on design with your student organizations and clubs. For more information on the Design Lab's programming, please check out our website. From there, you can also subscribe to our newsletter so you can stay updated on all our program offerings. We hope that by the end of this webinar, you will feel a little bit more comfortable and informed about what the Design Lab and the College of Design have to offer. And we hope that we will be able to work with you in the future. So now I'd like to introduce you to our main presenters of this webinar. We have with us two undergraduate students who are going to help introduce you to the College of Design majors and design career paths. So we have with us tonight Alyssa Smith and Matt Blanding. I'm going to let them introduce themselves and take over this webinar. So Matt, you want to get us started?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I am Matt Blanding. I guess now I just finished up my sophomore year in industrial design, so I'm technically a rising junior. In my free time, I really like to design furniture, cooking, and taking trips with my dog. I just got him back in December, so kind of like to travel anytime I can with him. Being an industrial designer, I've kind of always loved tools and hardware. So hopefully after I graduate, I end up working, with something like Lowe's or Husqvarna. I know both Lowe's and Husqvarna have their headquarters here in Charlotte, where I stay. So that would definitely be something would kind of look forward to having. And then I guess you guys can meet Alyssa now as well.
Hey, my name is Alyssa Smith. I'm a senior in graphic design and actually graduate tomorrow. So, but other than that, I'm an NC native. I studied abroad in spring 2020, so we all know how that went. Um, I was a past design camp counselor, and I'm a design camp counselor this year. And I'm most passionate about inclusive design, and talking to you guys about design itself and the College of Design is like right up my alley.
Okay. So next we have a short video prepared for you guys. It's basically gonna kind of just give you a quick overview, and almost like a virtual tour of the College of Design, in the campus and the kind of buildings that we have here.
Okay, so what is design? Design is in everything, like the chair you're sitting in, the computer or phone you're using, this Zoom interface, everything is design. And there are a million reasons why things are designed the way that they are, but the main ones would be for making life easier, more enjoyable, and more understandable. So for making life easier, even though this doesn't fit every airport you could ever land into, um, wayfinding is something that's there to help people easily navigate large spaces without having to ask for help or refer to a ton of different maps along the way. And this includes signage, floor marking, and color coding. To make life more enjoyable, I'm thinking about the computer mouse, and the enjoyment comes from the comfort. And as you can see from the original mouse designs till now, it's gone through so many different iterations to get it to where it is now, where many different designs are offered. from many different companies, and you can pick something that works for you. And for making life more understandable, infographics are a great example of data viz. And this is taking huge numbers and words that might not make sense if you just had it in a paragraph and turning it into icons, imagery, and something that's easy for the eye to follow. So example of that would be in the COVID-19 infographic that I put in here. And to sum it up, design is in everything you look at, everything you use, and we couldn't make it this far without it, and we're not going to make it very far if we don't keep working at it.
Matt, did you want to add anything or?
Yeah, I was gonna say really mainly kind of just to sum it all up, like Alyssa said, design is kind of everywhere. You know, taking a look at it, you know, from first thought, you don't really kind of think, oh, well, this was designed or that was designed. But once you kind of stop and take a step back, you tend to kind of understand. And even from like a design student standpoint, a lot of times you don't realize how much thought is put into something as so simple as, you know, like the way a door faces or kind of the way that like something is designed to be held. So just kind of simple things like that that you may consider a small detail. Are really like big aspects in the design process.
Great. So yeah, just to kind of sum up for what they said, design is everywhere. So we've got Matt and Alyssa are going to take you all through the majors that are offered at the undergraduate level at the College of Design. Before they jump into all of that, I would like to kind of quickly introduce you to each one. So we have 6 total programs of study offered at the College of Design. There are 4 studio-based undergraduate majors. We have 1 non-studio-based major and 1 undergraduate minor option. The 4 studio-based majors, as you can see, are architecture, art and design, industrial design, and graphic design. Design studies is our non-studio-based major. And as you can see from the description here, design studies is more of an investigative course of study, and it really does focus more on evaluating design through research, writing, and exhibition. We also have a landscape architecture and environmental planning program that undergraduates can minor in. And that program also offers a Master's of Landscape Architecture program. Matt and Alyssa, like I said, are going to take you through each program in a little bit more detail.
All right, so to begin, we have, it's a mouthful, but architecture, and then like Ashley said, landscape architecture and environmental planning. So the 2 disciplines are somewhat kind of members of the same family. Where they differ is that architecture is kind of both the process and the product of planning, designing, and fabricating structures. So whether that's, you know, homes, residential buildings, office spaces, kind of anything there and in between. But architecture is also kind of understanding the space and really kind of the environment and culture that a structure can kind of produce, whereas landscape architecture is kind of the work and the planning and the designing of the spaces in between those structures. So being able to bring the outside in or the inside out and marrying those 2 together. So some famous architects or landscape architects that you may know. There's the first guy. My window's blocking it just a little. Okay. So there's Roberto Burrow Marx, I think is how you say it. He's a landscape architect. And then the Copacabana Beach Promenade, which is that upper picture in the in the upper right hand corner. He designed that entire, I think it's 4.5 kilometers, which is basically like a waterside kind of promenade that stretches that span, and he designed kind of the walking space, the greenery that you see, the places where you can sit, and all of that was kind of taken into account. Then there's the Biltmore Estate and the entire property in the grounds on that area that was designed by Frederick Law Olmsted. If any of you have been to Biltmore up in Asheville, you can kind of understand the magnitude of this project just because that property is massive. So you can kind of get an understanding of just how large a landscape architect kind of has to deal with on a scale. And then something that a lot of people tend to not think about from an architecture standpoint is kind of the significance or the symbolism that goes along with architecture. A lot of times the buildings and the structures that are created aren't always just buildings and structures. A lot of times they're symbols for cultures, for groups of people, for movements. And so one building from Phil Freeland is the newly designed National Museum of African American History and Culture up in DC. Not only is it a building that's I guess you could say historical, but it's also kind of a symbol and a message for those for the African American community within the United States. And so, some possible career paths as an architect or a landscape architect. Um, the U.S. Air Force currently has multiple positions open designing health facilities. So that can range from what they call like pop-up facilities on Air Force bases, or like you see in the upper left-hand picture, elaborate kind of hospitals almost in a sense. You could also be a landscape architect for, in this case, this exact example, the city of Jacksonville. But there's city planners that are needed just about everywhere in every city. And so here you would be a city planner. You would, excuse me, you would kind of design and plan the landscapes between and kind of integrate it with buildings. Or you could also be a residential architect. I know here in Charlotte, for where I'm at, and just in the state of North Carolina, Ryan Homes is a big residential company. So this the picture down in the left hand corner is actually an example of some new, I guess, townhomes that they're building in the Cary area.
Okay, so this is my major, graphic design. Basically what it is communication through thoughtful and concise imagery, and this can take many forms. So from UI design, which is user interface. So for example, opening up Twitter, that's how Twitter looks. That would be UI design. We want users to almost intuitively know how to use the app, and use of the app would be UX design, user experience, and that's how it feels to tweet, visit profiles, check your own profile, all of that. That is UX design. And you could also do, and it goes to like complex timelines using data visualization. And here you'll be able to experience a wide array of what you can do in this field, from typography, app design, print layout design, and data viz. So some famous graphic designers that you might know: Tim Allen, he is the VP of design at Airbnb and also an NCSU alumni. And he did the Nike.com global redesign, which is the picture that I have here. Natasha Jen, she is an incredibly versatile designer and partner at Pentagram, which is this design firm that I couldn't even tell you how you become a partner at. And she designed a book called The Architecture of Closed Worlds, and that's just a little piece of what she can do. And finally, I have Jessica Hish. She is a lettering artist and type designer, and she did the new logo for the new logo redesign for Jenny's Ice Cream. And she also has Skillshare classes that you could like take for free, I think. And I really recommend that you go check them out if you can. They're really interesting, and I learned a lot that I didn't even know picking it up over summer last year. So some possible career paths, and these are demonstrated by alumni. I have UI UX designer, which again is like UI, Twitter, how it looks, UX, how it works. The alumni example is Kayla Watson. She graduated class of 2019, and she is a UI designer for RGA, which is an ad firm in New York. The work that I have here is her personal fashion brand called OK, and that's the logo design that she did for it. A creative director, which is pretty broad, but it's essentially being on top of all of the design and the creative side of a business. And an example of this is Kirsten Southwell. She is class of 2012, and she works at the Art Institute of Chicago. And the work I have up here is her redesign of the Art Institute's web brand. And another example of a UI UX designer, which we have a lot of graduates go into, would be Fina Kumara. She is class of 2020, and she currently works at an app company in downtown Raleigh called Lithios, but she also created her own clothing brand called Hyperdeliac. And she is a great example of somebody who elevated herself in her work through use of social media.
Uh-oh, it looks like Matt maybe froze. So hopefully Matt will show back up here in a second. So Matt actually majored in industrial design. Oh, there he is. Matt, you there you go.
Yeah, I think my computer had froze for a second, but I don't know what happened. So yes, like Ashley was saying, I am an industrial design major. So industrial design is oftentimes confused with industrial engineering. Sometimes I get, oh, so you design houses. To keep it simple, no, that's not what I did.
Oh no. I think Matt froze again.
Industrial designer, your job description, usually starting the design process by understanding what the problem is. Usually you're either presented with a set amount of issues, or you're tasked with kind of just figuring out, what's wrong with this process, how can I improve it, and what can be done to improve that process. So a lot of times, industrial designers are responsible for the look, feel, and functionality of a product, whether that's digital or physical, and how we interact with it on a daily basis. So some famous designers that you may know, or maybe not, you don't know the designer, but you know the products that they offer or that they've developed. First is Johnny Ive. He's the former chief design officer at Apple. I think he retired maybe a year and a half or 2 years ago. But up until then, I think he was on the design team from 1991 or 1990 up until 2 years ago. And so basically anything in between that time, Johnny Ive was the chief design officer. He was like Alyssa said, a lot of times what they call them creative directors, kind of over the entire design process of just about all the products that came from Apple between that time period. Next, for all of you that may be interested in cars or kind of the automotive industry, Ralph Giles, he is the senior head of design at the Fiat Chrysler Automotive. So that's his biggest, I guess you could say his biggest project, or his most well-known project is the SRT brand, I guess you could call it. So that's all your Hellcats, your Durangos, your Scat Packs, and anything in between, which I'm a avid lover of. I have one myself. So Ralph Giles is someone that I kind of look up to, and I kind of tend to, I don't want to say stalk, but I take interest in a lot of stuff that he does just because he's really good at what he does. And then Tinker Hatfield, for all of you sneakerheads. He's the Nike shoe designer behind the Air Jordan collection. So I think he started with Michael from the very first shoe, if I'm not mistaken. Which, there's actually a documentary on Tinker Hatfield. I think it's called Abstract, the Art of Design or something like that. There's an episode on Tinker Hatfield. It's on Netflix, and it explains how he went through even getting Michael to take the shoe deal, because at first Michael Jordan didn't want the shoe deal at all from Nike. And so he was like, well, I'll only take it if, I get to work with Tinker Hatfield. And so Tinker Hatfield is kind of the brains behind the Jordan collection. So some possible career paths that you may possibly take as an industrial designer. All three of these examples are actually alumni, like Alyssa presented before. So first is my personal mentor, Clavon Lowe. He's the senior industrial designer at Lowe's, and specifically in the Green Touch Homes department. So I think here he's designing, if I'm not mistaken, I want to say bathroom vanities and bathroom products right now. So that upper left-hand picture is an example of one of his spring collections that he actually just dropped not too long ago. Next is Jasmine Kent. She graduated back in 2017, I think from the master's program for industrial design, and she's currently a run apparel designer for Under Armour. And then lastly is you could possibly be an industrial design consultant. An example of this is Mike Lout. He's actually one of the professors that you would take. I think he teaches ideation 1 and 2. I believe. I know you'll take his courses at some point in time if you would become an industrial design student at NC State. And he kind of does industrial design consulting. So for him, he's more or less helping a company or a brand or someone who comes to him refine what it is that they're looking for and how they can bring that idea to life.
Okay, art and design. Art and design is an interdisciplinary major for people that are interested in mixing traditional art foundations with emerging design principles. And the first 2 years that are spent here are spent learning the foundations of art and design, and then you would take classes that better reflect what you want to do. That could be animation, interactive, or soft fibers and construction. So some famous people that would have taken art and design if they were at NC State would be Bisa Butler. She is a fabric artist who uses fabric to express and celebrate the Black experience. And the work I have here is called The Warmth of Other Suns. Alberto Mieglo, I hope I said that right. He is an animator and one of the animators that helped pin down the style that Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse would take on. And he works a lot with Sony and Disney. And finally, I have Rebecca Sugar, and she is an animator and musician, and she came up with Steven Universe, which was shown on Cartoon Network not too long ago. And she's an example of somebody who expertly uses narrative to influence her work, which is really encouraged under this major. And some art and design career paths that are demonstrated by alumni. I have textile designer and Emily Sickle, who is class of 2019. She works as a textile designer at Madewell now. And the work that I have here is from her collection called Synergy, which she did for Art to Wear, which is NC State's annual fashion show. It's open to all students and anybody from any major can apply to make something for it. The next person I have is Allison Press. She is a civic designer. I can't find when she graduated, but she went to NC State and she worked for IDEO for a while. And she created an app called Bendable, which is a community learning app that she helped design. And it's essentially to help the town of South Bend find other people around that have skills or have advice and be able to share amongst each other. And another UI UX designer, Isabel Miranda, she helped design Sensor HD hardware. Yeah, she helped design the Sensor HD hardware device at Man and Hummel Group. And this device is supposed to be able to keep track of certain hardware works and problems with its operation.
All right. So I think this might be the last discipline. But design studies is basically at its core an investigation into the role design plays in shaping human values and experiences. So it's more or less kind of taking the design process and understanding how it can be applied to just about any and every aspect of daily life. So some student work examples. The Who Has the Right to the City, which is the example on the far right. That was by Emma Blodden. She was a student. I think she might possibly still be. But this was a design studies capstone research project that she did. And then the data stories project was with April. I really hope I don't mess this up, but Maclaga, maybe. And so she actually designed this piece while taking what you would call a swing studio in the graphic design 503 course. And so a lot of times with design studies, you have the opportunity to take other courses that can kind of supplement and enrich the work that you do as a design studies major. And so in this case, you can see that she took some of the graphic design things that she learned and she applied them to her project here. And so some possible career paths as a design studies major or graduate, I should say. Like Alyssa kind of pointed out earlier, you could be a creative director for, in this case, Estee Lauder. They have current openings right now in their North American division. And so like Alyssa said, being a creative director, you're more or less kind of over the entire, I guess, design process, the design department within a company. So being able to understand the design process as a whole and how it affects different parts of a business or a company is something that you would have to kind of possess. You could be a brand strategist for Lowe's and in this specific case at the Stanley Black and Decker team. So mainly that's working with kind of kind of melding the two from the branding side of the company and the industrial design side. And you're kind of like the go-between and the liaison that helps bring both sides together to create not only a brand, but a product that sells. And then you could also be a freelance designer or start your own design firm. Since you have those, I guess, understandings of the design process. An example of this would be Chris Doe. That's the guy in the blue picture down in the middle. He is what you would call, I guess, the chief executive director or designer at a company called The Future. And they're really kind of unique in a way just because they have a goal of bringing awareness to 1 billion people. That's their mission, the 1 billion mission. and just bringing kind of awareness to design and how it affects daily lives. So if you want to kind of maybe jump into design a little more, I do recommend following or subscribing to them on YouTube. I watch all of their videos all the time, and you actually get to find out a lot more of design from I guess, a designer standpoint and not a viewer standpoint.
I'd like to also mention again, in a previous slide at the beginning, I talked about Alex Kinnicky, who used to be an intern with the Design Lab. He was a design studies major, and like I said earlier, currently a graphic designer working with Calvin Klein, working for the Calvin Klein company in New York City. All right, we're going to really quickly share with you too. So we've covered all of the majors and programs available at the College of Design. The College of Design also has a study abroad requirement, which I think is really wonderful and great. Alyssa is going to talk to you a little bit about her experiences when she studied abroad. And then Matt has his study abroad program coming up in 2 years, I think. And he's going to talk to you a little bit about that. But as you can kind of see on this slide, in today's design practice, as it says here, global awareness really is critical. And because of this, the College of Design does require undergraduate students to spend a semester abroad. So Alyssa, could you kind of talk to everybody kind of about your experiences, where you went, what you did, how it was?
Yeah, so I studied abroad in spring 2020. I went to Prague, and it, like, I don't know if there's like a great word to express it, but it was really like eye-opening to see how like different cultures and how their like practices over there influence their design principles and how they just make things. It's very different, and this is a great opportunity to, you could go to Prague, you could go really anywhere to see how different cultures influence how they design, and how like even the size of the country can influence how people design products for the people living there. And it was not only a learning experience for design, but a huge learning experience as a person. I changed a lot since I went to Prague, and I made a lot of new friends and new contacts since I went. So I I definitely recommend going if you can afford it.
And I guess to kind of piggyback off of that, I know Alyssa kind of mentioned it. Prague isn't the only option. I know within my class of, I think, 17, um, I know there's two students possibly. I think they're going to spend a semester in Sydney, Australia. And then I think there's one more that might be going to Spain, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So there's multiple programs and options available. Prague isn't the only one. I know a lot of students tend to just go to Prague because it is an extension of an NC State campus. So over there, it's like NC State Prague. So that's one of the options, but it's not limited to just Prague.
Yeah, and if you're interested in knowing more about the study abroad program, I highly recommend just checking out the College of Design's website. You can find the study abroad information, and I'm pretty sure there's a list of all of the different study abroad options of where you could go. So again, highly recommend checking that out. And then I'm going to let Matt talk about this because he actually had a part to play in this.
Yes, design studies. If I'm not sure if any of you have heard of it before, but if you're interested in hearing about some of the graduates that I guess left the College of Design and came on to be very successful in what they do, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they highlight one from each discipline. And so I had the honor of interviewing and sitting down with and talking to actually an example that Alyssa had presented, Tim Allen, who is the VP of Design currently, I think now at Airbnb. But he has done amazing work at, I believe it was Nike, where he completely redesigned their entire just interface, and they're kind of from like a consumer standpoint. But I got the chance to talk to Tim. I was able to sit down and do an interview, and kind of really just understand what it is and what he does, and even just meet him as a person, which is really cool. So I will say, if you have the time, or even if you're just interested at all in the other majors, and you want to see, and hear live what it is that people do in their respective majors or disciplines, definitely check out the Design Identities page.
Yeah, and just to kind of clarify just a little bit, so the Design Identities, it is a virtual exhibit. And so once you go to that website, you can navigate your way around and you can find the different interview videos and check out some of our alum and what they're doing professionally. And you'll get to hear Matt interview Tim Allen. All right, so we're gonna switch over to our Q&A time. We would really love to offer you all a chance to ask any questions you might have. So you can use the Q&A option that's located in the feature options in your window. I'm gonna get us started and just go ahead and throw a question out. And I have a couple questions prepared just in case you guys might not have a lot to ask. But I do think Matt and Alyssa are really great representatives and can really share kind of what it's like to be at the College of Design. So Alyssa and Matt, these questions are for both of you. So feel free to answer in any order that you want. So here's my first question. So what, if you could just share with everybody, what led you to choose design as a major and a career path?
Okay. To start off with, I would definitely say I was always interested in design. I know starting off, I was more or less leaning towards graphic design, like my freshman year of high school and stuff. I got to high school and started taking what you would call, I guess, drafting classes. I had a drafting teacher who was really cool. His name was Mr. Blanco, and he wore this really funny hat all the time, every day. And then he ended up leaving, and I was really hurt about that. So they got someone to replace him, which ended up being, twice as better. And she was actually a full-time architect who decided to just take 3 years off and become a teacher while her son was finishing up high school. He actually ended up being in the same grade that I was, and he went to the same school. And so she was like, well, you know what? I'll teach the engineering and architecture courses. I have, the skill set to do it. And she ran that class like a college level studio every day that I was in there. And I just loved it. I fell in love with it. And so I ended up taking all of her engineering courses. I took all of her architecture courses. And she was like, well, you're kind of done. And I was like, well, if there's any way possible for me to take more, please let me know. And so she ended up going out of the way and developing, I guess, like an advanced studies course, where I got like a real taste of what it is to be in a college level studio. So for the entire semester, I worked on basically one project the entire semester. And she basically took me through like the collegiate level version of like a design studio in a sense. So I would meet with her. We would discuss various aspects and points about my project. I would have to present to her like concepts, presentations, updates. And then at the end, I had to create and I guess develop a full prototype, which was the entire process was just amazing. But it went to show me just what kind of people are in design and the kind of things that you can do with it.
Yeah, and for me, I didn't know what I wanted to do for a long time. I just knew I was bad at math. So in high school, in my sophomore year, there was a digital media academy formed at my school. And I signed up for it because I was like, this will look good for something. But while I was there, I had two really great teachers, Mr. Petty and Mr. Maldonado. And we learned all about different types of design and like even past design, like video production. We learned about that as well. And that ended up being one of the things I love to do the most. And like in that class, we learned about all of these things about design. And then we also were encouraged to join a club called Skillsusa, which is, it's like a trade club. So you could do like, you could fix AC, you could fix heating, and you can do video production. It was really wild. And me and my teammate, we actually competed in video production and got to states. And we won second place at states. And then after that, we went to nationals and won a career safe video contest, which is essentially us doing a video talking about how you should really wear personal protection equipment when you're doing trade work because you could die. And all of that was just such a great experience. And all of my classmates were really cool. And Mr. Petty is actually an alumni of NC State. So he was all about trying to get us to sign up for the College of Design. And every year now, he has a good chunk of that class get into the College of Design. So that's how I got into design.
Awesome. We did have one question pop up in the Q&A from Isabel. She said, can we watch this recording again after this ends? Absolutely. So we are recording this webinar. We will end up posting this on the Design Labs YouTube channel. That should be posted in the next 2 days. So feel free to go and subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you search for us on YouTube under Design Lab, you should be able to find us. You can also find a link to our YouTube channel from our website. But yes, we will have this video uploaded and you'll be able to watch it again. I'm going to ask some more questions. If anybody, oh, hey, we do have another question. Felicia is asking, what are portfolios? Is a portfolio required to apply for design school? When should high school students begin working on their portfolios?
Okay, Alyssa, do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first? Because I think we both kind of have the same idea.
Yeah.
So okay, I guess I kind of start off. One, to answer your first question, yes, portfolio is needed. And one, to get into the design school, but two, later on through like your collegiate process, I guess, you'll learn more and more that portfolio does what your words cannot. And so, you know, it's quick and easy. I would say quick and easy because developing and kind of refining your portfolio is a long and stressful process. But having a portfolio kind of just conveys everything that you can't say in an interview or you can't say in a 2-minute kind of phone call, or you can send a file to someone who you may want to be getting a job with, and your portfolio can say all the things it needs to say without ever saying a word, in a sense. It shows the skills you have, the ability to compile information, and just everything that goes into the design process in a way that not only grabs the attention, but effectively delivers whatever solution that you were able to kind of come up with. As for being a high school student, I will say that I guess if you're probably a junior or senior, I would say now's the time to kind of start thinking about it. Especially, I know for me, designing my designing my portfolio, I think I ended up having to apply by December maybe of my senior year. So it was early on. I had to have my portfolio done and submitted because the application process mainly starts with you submitting your portfolio. Then you would hear back whether they wanted you to come in for the interview session or not. And then from there, you basically take another look at your portfolio, but you'd be sitting down with faculty and staff within the College of Design. And they basically, that's when you have the chance to speak the words that may be missing within your portfolio and stuff. But the portfolio is what gets you in the door in just about any and every kind of situation.
Yeah, pretty much what Matt said. The portfolio is what you can't put into words. It's your work, and what you like to do, most importantly, is what should be in your portfolio. I would not recommend putting work in there that you don't even like to do. You'll get a job and you'll hate it. But essentially, just what Matt said. It's what you like to do, what you can do, but you can't put it into words. And just like with Matt, I think I finished my portfolio end of early December.
Yes, it had to be somewhere around there because I remember I got the call back in February. So I think it's like usually it's by the end of like that previous year, I think. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's somewhere like early to late fall, somewhere in.
And just to help those that are watching, you can go to the College of Design's website and look at the admissions process and kind of check out the dates of when portfolios and their application materials are due. But I think what Alyssa and Matt are saying, they're on the right time frame. Because one of the questions I had was about portfolios as well. Can y'all just kind of talk a little bit about what y'all included in your portfolio?
Sure. Alyssa, since you're graduating and your portfolio might be a little more foolproof than mine, you can go ahead.
For the portfolio to get into the school, because I took a lot of digital media classes, I already had a bunch of different graphic design works that I could put into it. So I put in like digital art that I did. I think I had physical art that I did that I put in, some of my graphic design stuff. Um, Basically, I just had like a wide array of the things that I like to do, sort of aimed towards the major that I wanted to go into.
I would say for me, I was kind of, I won't say all over the place. But in my portfolio, I tried to present just a little bit of everything that I offer. Um, I was very much, even in high school and stuff. Um, I loved furniture and furniture design. So with that last project that I was speaking about earlier in my advanced studies course, I built and kind of designed an actual piece of furniture that I ended up selling and getting sold and stuff. So that was like my main piece in my portfolio that I entered. And then I believe there was another piece that I did in the previous engineering course I took the semester before that. And I developed kind of modular seating systems for a classroom, like overcluttered classrooms that were like really high in student count, but couldn't accommodate all of their students. So I developed, I think they were like seats and desks kind of kind of morphed into each other. But they had the ability to like roll together and become like modular pods. So now you could have like 5 or 6 students sitting together that created like one large table surface. So you could have multiple like pods in a room, but you also had individual seating. So I included those 2 projects. And then I think I did some of my just like personal drawing and sketching. And then I think I had like one really abstract, just like random sketch that I had. And then I went and like redid it and polished it up a little bit and put it in there. But I think I had maybe 4 or 5 pieces, if I'm not mistaken.
Awesome. All right, so we did get another question in our Q&A. So it says, I'm going to be a senior next year, and I'm still trying to figure out if design is something I will be interested in. What are some steps I can take to get ahead in the process? I feel behind.
Oh, okay, you can handle this. I'm sorry.
Okay, I was just gonna say, first of all, don't sweat it. You'll be okay. You'll get there.
That's what I was gonna say.
Doing what you're doing now, like attending this webinar and doing research on design, will definitely like start to get you to the place where you know if design is something that you want to do or something that you don't want to do. And I recommend also in your senior year or over the summer. Is it? Yeah, over the summer if it's been inside so long.
I've lost track too. Trust me.
Over the summer, if there are any like schools doing tours or having more webinars like this, I'd go to them and just look up a bunch of stuff about design. That's definitely what I did to see if I really wanted to do this. But you'll get there. You're fine.
Yeah. To add to that, like Alyssa said, do not feel behind. I felt the same way that I got to school and I was like, wow, they teach me everything I need to know. So do not feel behind at all. Just because, like, you know, like I said, when you get here, I don't want to say you're gonna start clean slate, but they're basically gonna like any, I guess, predetermined ideas and stereotypes that you have of coming in about whatever design field that you're going into. They're going to wipe those clean and they're going to present to you like what that major is and what it isn't. And they're just going to give you everything that you need to know. So don't feel behind at all. I guess to like foolproof if you're interested in design or not. One thing I did, like brands and companies that I just a lot of times I was interested in or I liked, I would I would go to YouTube and like type in their name and then put like design after it. And so like you tend to find a lot of like cool things, or a lot of times even like videos or segments that they did on TV shows or on YouTube about how things are designed at that company. Or even like if you go on YouTube, there's not YouTube on Netflix, and you just type in design in the search bar, they pull up so many things that are like design related. I'm not sure what field you may want to go into, but I know for industrial design, like I said earlier, abstract of art or the abstract art of design or something like that. There's Ralph Giles and Tinker Hatfield on there. Those 2 episodes are really good. And then there's also a show called The World's Most Extraordinary Homes, I think. And that's an architecture show. Basically, it's about these elaborate and kind of like mind-blowing houses and buildings that are built. It kind of just takes you through the entire process of the architect meeting the client, then them going through the phase of designing it. Then they meet like some really big problem or issue, and then they end up solving it, and now they have like this crazy house smashed into a side of a hill. And so, watching, I guess just like watching things and being able to understand the design process and just feeling, having that feeling of, I guess, this is something that I may want to do, even if you don't know quite yet that this is what I want to do. This is exactly what I want to be. Give it time to grow on you. Don't, just kind of kill it and knock it down just because it's not 100% set in stone yet. So.
Great. We did get another question about portfolios, and it says, what does the portfolio consist of? I'm going to recommend heading to the College of Design's admissions office website. And you can find, there's a PDF document on that website that'll kind of walk you through the admissions process, and it'll give you some information on what exactly you need to be adding into your portfolio. So that's going to be your best resource for that. And then we got another question.
Actually, can I add something to that? Just a little like tidbit.
Yes.
I was going to say, I know a platform that I use as an industrial designer that I kind of just like to like dabble on. It's called Behance. I think it's Behance. Behance. And there's portfolios and portfolios among portfolios of just like different designers that do different work. But at the same time, it's also like a social media platform too. So people post like some of the work that they've done. You can comment and all that kind of stuff on it. But even if you just take the time to go look at Behance, that stuff is really refined. And it's from people that are like either in the industry or in their 4th or 5th year of school. So don't feel like you're behind just because you look at it, it's like, oh, this is really great work. But the simple like layout and just like explanation of what they have in their portfolio is something that you could take away from. So I would try Behance.com.
Awesome.
And, sorry.
Go ahead.
Also, include process. If you have process photos from the beginning of the work to the end, include that. Or if you don't have any photos, talk about it in descriptions. Process is super important.
Or if you don't have either one of those, or you can't do either one of those, sketches work too. So being able to like sketch out or quickly just like illustrate, that process helps too.
Awesome, good. We got another question, and this one I can definitely answer. So it says, do you have any information as to what summer camps would be beneficial this summer? So we are offering 3 programs this summer. They're all digital. We're still in the wake of COVID, but we have our digital design camp going on this summer. We have 3 programs, one for middle school students, that's Design Foundations. And that's going to take students through 3 studio projects just to give them a taste of the fundamentals of design. We have a Design Explorations program, and that's for all levels of high school students, so 9th through 12th grade. The Design Explorations is basically that. It is an exploration of the different design fields. As part of that program, students will go through 5 different studio projects, 1 each day, and 1 covering each of the 5 studio-based majors at the College of Design. And then we also have for 11th and 12th grade students, our Design Immersions program. That program's a little different than the other 2. This program, like I said, it's just for 11th and 12th grade students. And that program is a 2-week and 1-day program. We're going to have an early summer orientation in the middle of June for that. And that's just to meet our students that are participating in that program. We're going to assign a sketchbook assignment that students will work on over the course of the next month. And then that actual program, the first full week of it doesn't start until the end of July. The first week of that program will be a design fundamentals week. And that will take students through we're modeling it after the first year experience that our freshmen and undergraduate freshmen go through. And so that'll be covering topics that are fundamental to design, hence it's the Design Fundamentals Week. And then we've got the second week of that program, students will participate in 1 studio project. So during the Design Fundamentals Week, students will get to hear from and meet all of the instructors for the studio project week. Students in that program will get to rank their choice of which studio project they would like to work on. We'll do our best to give them their top choice. But they will then in that last week of the program, they will work with 1 instructor on 1 studio project. and they'll work on that project for an entire week with the plan that they will complete that project to portfolio quality. As part of that week, our instructors will talk to students about how to prepare that work for portfolio, how to properly photograph it, how to properly write about it. And yeah, so that's the Design Immersions program. Feel free to head to the Design Lab's website. You'll find all the information you need for our digital design camp programs. Registration does end this Friday, so you might want to jump on that if you're interested in joining us this summer. I will say we will be offering weekend workshops next fall and next spring. We'll be advertising what those topics are and when they will be early in the fall, so around September. So again, I highly recommend going to our website and subscribing to our newsletter. That'll help you stay up to date on all the programs that we'll be offering. But we would love to see you, if you can't make it to our summer programming, we'd love to see you one weekend coming up next year. We will aim to offer a weekend workshop for each of the disciplines at the College of Design. And that kind of covers that. Let's see.
I was gonna say there's another question. It says, how competitive is it to get into the School of Design? I guess actually I'll answer this first, but then you can kind of, I guess, give the faculty and staff answer to that. I will say, for just to kind of put it into perspective, I know when I was applying, I think there was well over, I want to say over 60 or 70 industrial design applicants. But my class is 17 students. So that kind of brings it down to understanding, like how many get into the program versus, how many apply. And then, from that, when you're accepted, I will say the competitive atmosphere kind of comes down to, who you have in your class and like who you have in studio. And I will say too, a lot, because I know we're using the word studio a lot too. Studio is basically like you take a design studio. I know for industrial design, you take one every semester. And it's where you basically take the things that you're learning in your specific courses. So like from your ideation course, in my case, my 3D modeling courses, and then my human factors course, you would take those lessons and practices that you learn in each respective area, and you bring them together in the design process, basically, and you develop either a project, where you develop a product or some kind of service or device or something along the lines, according to your respective major. So that's what studio is. But kind of the competitive atmosphere once you get into the College of Design, it comes down to who's in your class and really how bad you guys kind of want to be good. I know for me, in my case, it's an even 50-50 split between girls and boys in my class. And so, a lot of times the girls are blowing us out of the water. And then there's other times where it's the opposite way around. So it's honestly just, if the people, there's 17 or 18, sometimes there's maybe 20 for industrial design. But kind of comes down to, just, are you guys going to make each other better at the end of the day?
And just to add on from the graphic design experience of it, I don't know how many people applied during my year, but we have, I think, 30 people in my class. And like Matt said, it depends on who is in your studio. I know, like, all the years that I've been here, every studio has a different personality. For example, my studio is more collaborative. So instead of, like, whenever classes were split, we would always ask each other what was going on, and then it would create like some sort of confusion because the classes are different. But it all just depends on the people that are in your studio, and if you like to share what you know.
To add to that a little bit, I'm going to ask you and direct you to the College of Design's website. You can kind of check out and see. I know there's a portion of the website that kind of covers how the different programs and different disciplines at the College of Design, how they kind of rank across the country. And you will find that we are highly ranked in most all of our disciplines. And so it's competitive, but if you don't apply, then you don't
never
get
know.
in, right?
Never know. Yes.
You never know. So our recommendation is, throw your hat in the ring, see what happens. You never know. What is it? What's the phrase? You
You
miss
miss 100% of the shots you never take, or you don't take, or something like that. So
exactly.
oh, and I was gonna say too, to add to that, even what Ashley was saying, as an industrial designer, or even just in the design field in general, and from my point of it, especially as a minority, a lot of times we feel that way about jobs and applying to internships and applying to just about like opportunities in general. So kind of what Ashley said, not only applying for school, but once you get into whatever school you're going to, whatever major you might want to focus on, a lot of times, you might discredit yourself before anybody else does. So I was saying, just, sometimes just say, oh, well, I'm going to do it. Just because, I know that I have the skill sets to accomplish this job just as well as anybody else can. And so a lot of times, as a minority male, I have to tell myself that, because sometimes I count myself out before anybody else does. So I would say, just remember that kind of, even once you get into the college of design, you start applying for internships and jobs and everything else along the line. So
that's really, really great advice, Matt. Okay, go ahead, Alyssa.
I'm sorry. Definitely don't count yourself out from things. I do this all the time. Trying to apply for internships spring 2020 was a nightmare. And before COVID, I was getting rejected. But as long as I like put my hat in the ring and at least tried, that's what matters. And now it's like I almost talked myself out of applying to Apple, but I did it anyway because who gonna check?
Oh, good. Yes. Right? Exactly. So.
Yes. Awesome. Great advice. Thank you.
And then I was going to add too, Ashley. I don't know if any of you know this, but Apple is moving to RTP. That's going to be big as a designer, whether you're graphic design, industrial design, especially because Apple is one of the leading industrial design kind of forefront companies, especially from a graphic design standpoint, because all of their digital interfaces are just immaculately put together. So, I know I'll be graduating when it's supposed to be kind of 2023 or summer of 2023, when they're supposed to be done building their campuses and stuff and like up and running. But just being able to like keep an eye out on stuff like that too, because a lot of times those, just being involved in the community and stuff that's coming, a lot of times will set you up kind of prior to the opportunities and available things that may be out there, to offer. So, Raleigh was kind of just a place for school for me, but in 2 years now it might also be a place for a work and career opportunity, just because Apple's going to bring any and everything along with them when they come to town. So just being able to kind of, as a designer, not just being a designer, but being a designer within the world that you're in, being immersed in whatever it is that you want to do, and where you are will help you as a designer.
Awesome. Yes. All right. It's 6:02. We haven't gotten any other questions, so I think we'll call it a night. Before we end, I would really like to say to Matt and Alyssa, thank you both so much for preparing and presenting this webinar. I'm going to clap for you, our attendees. I know we can't see you, but if you want to clap for them too, they can feel it in their hearts. And to our audience, for those of you that attended, and anyone who might end up watching the recording, we really appreciate you joining us. We do hope to see, and we do hope to work with you in the future. And that's the end of our webinar. So we hope everybody has a wonderful night. Thank you all so much. I can stop sharing. So yeah, thank you all so much for being here. Bye-bye.
Bye guys, have a good one.